The Realms of Ukador, Prologue 1b, Shipwrecked. There was another ship upon the ocean of storms, similarly filled with souls looking for a fresh start, a new adventure, perhaps a new home. As the ship nears Edak, we join the scene within the storm wake. Orcish pirates have set upon the ship. The ship was filled with civilians, and among them were several paladins escorting a cleric of Tyr, Dosa. Ertos, a male kobold, who'd been keeping watch from the crow's nest, notices the orc ship in pursuit and alerts the captain, Darren. The captain calls to his men to turn the ship hard to starboard, violently jostling the passengers and awakening Jadobi, a half-elf druid. Despite the sudden wake-up call, he feels refreshed and curious to see what is happening. As he makes his way up the stairs, he encounters a young human boy, Samson, who greets him with a smile. Jadobi greets the boy and continues up the stairs. The boy Samson continues playing with his small wooden horse and notices a figure nearby. He approaches a humanoid creature whose hood has fallen away. As he nears her, he sees Denahi, a female tiefling, and lets out a scream at the sight of her exposed horns. This alerts the paladin guards nearby, and their captain, Gifrin, immediately orders his men to charge. One of their number, Geir, calls to his comrades and urges them to stay their hand as he attempts to reason with the tiefling. At this moment, the ship and her crew are so focused on the enemy in pursuit that they fail to see the dangerous rocks ahead. Crashing into the rocks at full speed, the ship is ripped immediately into two. Above deck, the unfortunate are thrown into the shallow water, while those below are taken by the current. The paladin Geir grabs Samson and makes for the upper decks to no avail as he and the boy get sucked down with rushing water. Minutes seem like an eternity, and suddenly the survivors find themselves washed ashore. Regaining his senses, the paladin Captain Gifrin helps the cleric Dosa to his feet when he catches sight of the tiefling. He calls out to her, placing blame squarely upon her for this disaster, and charges. Geir finds his footing just in time and intervenes, throwing himself between the two. Gifrin hesitates a moment before raising his sword on Geir, his own man. Suddenly, an arrow pierces Gifrin's arm. A dozen orcs have stormed the beach to finish what they started. The survivors shift attention to the greater threat and are able to defeat the attackers, but not without great losses. Only the orc captain remained, and he attacked with unbridled fury, killing two paladins instantly. Gifrin redirects himself to protect his men, but fails to intervene in time. The orc captain strikes down Dosa with his great axe. The tiefling Denahi joins the battle, attempting to help despite the treatment she's received thus far, but her ice bolt misses its mark and instead damages the other survivors. She composes herself for a second attack, unleashing a bolt of fire that pierces the orc captain's chest clean through, felling the beast in a smoldering heap. Meanwhile, Ertos scurries about the field, looting the fallen, both friend and foe. Gifrin surveys the battlefield. His paladins fallen. The cleric he was to protect lays dying. Within him still burns an unyielding fury toward the tiefling, despite her aid in the battle, and he once again takes up arms and lunges for her. Geir is seized with a vision of his family's crest upon Denahi's arm glowing. He again throws himself between his captain and the tiefling, but Gifrin's rage is undeniable. As Gifrin raises his weapon, Geir knocks him out. He strips the captain of his armor and weapon and binds his hands. Meanwhile, Jadobi aids the surviving civilians and Ertos continues his looting. Denahi takes a step back and tries to compose herself in light of all that's transpired. The dying cleric Dosa reaches out to Geir and hands him a note. Unnoticed, a final orc, though slain, rises and leaps for the bound Gifrin. The orc pierces the paladin captain's chest with a longsword, killing him immediately. Gyr, suddenly overcome with guilt and pain at his indirect hand in his captain's death, draws his staff and strikes the final orc down in one powerful blow. The survivors gather themselves and make introductions while taking stock of their situation. In the distance comes the call of an orcish war horn. The survivors gather what they can carry and make haste to the north towards the gate of the Great Pass. They arrive, and Caro Sigard of the King's Guard allows them passage across into Zeagate. Gyr, having taken the lead, asks the Zeagate guards to direct him to the nearest temple. As the group makes their way through the town to the temple, it was apparent that here, too, the orcs had recently attacked. At the temple, the group is met by Sister Garla, thankful for the presence of the paladin and his party, and asks them for their assistance. Moving to the back, Gyr heals a near-death soldier and earns the favor of Laro Sigard, older brother of the bridge guard. All this time Denahi had remained in the doorway, hesitant to enter. Sister Garla spots her and drops the water pitcher she was carrying. She discerns a birth aura surrounding the tiefling and urges her to enter. As she does, the entire room turns their attention. Denahi casts her gaze to the floor. Garla lifts Denahi's hood to reveal her true form. The room is startled, rapt with attention. Not a sound is heard. Garla lifts Denahi's chin, bringing her eyes up to meet her own. "I see a light in you," she says in a soft voice, and offers her aid, if ever it is needed. The party finishes up healing and assisting with the injured within the temple. Garla thanks them. Laro leads the party to the tavern, where they rest and get acquainted. Gyr convinces Ertos to surrender the gold he'd taken off the fallen allies and give it to Garla for the temple. They retire for the evening, and as they sleep, Denahi has a vision as well, seeing the same family crest Gyr had seen earlier. Waking in the morning, she sees the mark now upon her forearm, where she had never noticed it before. Laro meets the party for breakfast and offers them a mission. He requires their aid in the assault upon the orcish fort to the north. While he cannot send men of his own, he assures them there is additional aid headed from Edak. He advises them to seek out Captain Dorius in Edak for payment upon completion of their task, 50 gold for each orc head collected. The party finishes their meal and heads out. They stop at General Nonsense to grab a few items for the journey. As they make their way to leave town, a small voice calls out after them. It is Samson, the young boy from the boat. He hugs Denahi and thanks her, tears streaming down his face. He apologizes for screaming at her before. Unsure how to respond, Denahi pats upon the head. The boy sees Jadobi as well, and, remembering his kindness, hands him his wooden toy horse. He bids them farewell. The party continues on their path until they come upon the orcish fort, an imposing structure in the near distance, and they begin planning their assault.